Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. As Scott mentioned, we've been doing this for quite a while now, a little over 3 years. And this is going to be episode 162 of Talking Real. Almost every single Tuesday for the last 3 years, we've been putting out podcast episodes. And we appreciate those of you that have joined us, whether it's from the very beginning, episode 1, or this maybe is your first episode. This is a great opportunity to get involved with us because we've got lots of great content coming in the future. Nabil, how are you today?
I am very excited. It's not every day. We have the executive director of the Real Estate Commission sitting next to us.
In fact, I think of all 162 episodes, this is the first time we've had the executive director, not just Grant, but any executive director from the Real Estate Commission on. So Grant, thank you for giving some time to us and joining us here on Talking Real. How are you today?
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here. I'm just happy to share some of the cool updates we've got going on at the Commission. I know it's been a year of really big changes, so just happy to be here and ready to kind of shoot it around and talk about some of the cool stuff we've got going on.
It's going to be good and informative. We know that people love to hear from the Real Estate Commission, what's going on there, and some interesting, informative things there. Sadly, my two colleagues here didn't get the memo that it was wear shorts to work day. So it's just going to be me that's halfway to Casual Friday. But you know what? We're having a good time at Capitol Conference.
You don't
here.
send us the important info.
Got the Zoom tuxedo going strong. I like it.
Exactly. So. Well, Grant, first of all, I want to give everybody an opportunity to hear a little bit about your background because you've been relatively recent as the executive director of the Real Estate Commission. And so tell us a little bit about your background, where you've come from in your career, and kind of what's going on now with the Real Estate Commission.
Yeah, I'd love to. So as you mentioned, this is actually the 1-year anniversary, I think, about for me taking on the job as executive director. So prior, I'm a 4th generation Oklahoman, I should start there. And I moved to Oklahoma about 7 years ago. I actually spent a lot of my youth growing up in Connecticut with my family down here. And so I went to OU Law School and worked for a great law firm here in Oklahoma City, one of the best in the state actually. Worked for a Fortune 500 company in their legal department. Then as soon as I was kind of getting ready to graduate from law school, the call to public service started to kind of come to fruition. I had a judge kind of talk me into taking an internship at the Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office. So I spent about 8 months working there for David Prater. And then I was actually recruited from there to go join the Oklahoma Attorney General's office. So I spent about close to 4 years as an Assistant Attorney General. As an Assistant Attorney General, I had a lot of agency work, which has really helped me out a lot for taking on this role. So I served as General Counsel to the State Medical Board, handled all of their appeals to the Supreme Court and civil appeals throughout the state. Jeff, I think we have that in common, that I also served as General Counsel to the State Election Board for a short period of time, the Office of Juvenile Affairs, and then probably another 5 or 6 agencies that I could name. So I got to travel around the state and meet a lot of good people, appear in a lot of courtrooms, and then towards the end of my time as an Assistant Attorney General, an opportunity came up to come over to the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission and serve as sort of an in-house counsel as well as a deputy director.
We could do a whole episode on the background.
Yeah, we have some similar background there because I also did some time at the attorney, did some time, that sounds like it's, they locked me up in the AG's office and was general counsel essentially for the Real Estate Commission while I was there for a little while. So it's kind of interesting we have that shared background to some degree.
Yeah, it's really good experience.
Well, you've had a lot going on there at the Real Estate Commission in the last year. I mean, one, you had the great benefit of coming in right as a pandemic was hitting and locking down and all that. But the Real Estate Commission has had a lot of changes over the last year and a lot of new efficiencies, just a lot going on there. You've been doing a lot of improvements. And we'll get into some specifics, but I want to give you a chance to give just a little bit of an update of just some of the general things that are going on at the Real Estate Commission and give you a chance to brag about what's going on there.
Sure.
Because we love you guys over at the Real Estate Commission. We've got a great relationship with you guys, love to work with you. And so I want you to brag on some of your folks over there and what's going on.
I'm always happy to talk about the commission. I feel like I could talk about that all day. So I'll just say this, when we came into the commission and we kind of had a leadership change and had an opportunity to kind of start with a clean slate. And the biggest thing that I talked about with commissioners was a desire to kind of streamline and simplify and speed things up and change the way that we do service. And a lot of the guiding principles that we're following right now actually come from Governor Stitt. When he came in as governor, he talked a lot about taking a more business-friendly approach to things, talked about, hey, as a state, let's embrace technology because that is the future, right? We're seeing it everywhere we go. The top companies, the best governments, they're all embracing technology and getting into the digital age. So, the governor started this digital transformation initiative, and that was a big thing for me coming in, seeing the commission, which at the time last year, we operated exclusively on paper. Everything we did was paper. It took forever for forms and documents to applications to come in through the mail, or a lot of you had to drive from all over the state, 77 counties, into Oklahoma City just to deliver a form to make sure that it was actually filed, actually received, and then processed. And so, going through that, what I almost kind of term as like a hazing period, I had an opportunity to get a lot of feedback from the public, and that actually has guided a lot of what we've done this year. Looking at kind of identifying what are some things we can do better, where are some ways that we can grow, and then kind of attacking that. So, I think the biggest change that we made this year is kind of getting off of paper and going to more of a digital approach. And I know that has been met with a lot of positive feedback. Certainly, I know big change, anytime that happens, can not be comfortable, but we kind of adopted this mindset of being comfortable in the uncomfortable. So as far as specific changes that we've made, we brought in a brand new licensing system, which I'm really, really proud of and really, really excited about. We're actually one of the first state agencies in Oklahoma to adopt this system. We actually kind of had to fight for it. And the cool thing that we're seeing now is that all the other state agencies are actually starting to follow suit. So the vendor that we actually identified and contracted with, we've got about a dozen to 24 agencies that are actually going into contract with them or are already under contract. So a lot of you, if you have licenses of other types, actually may get more comfortable with kind of using that technology, because more of the agencies are adopting that. And I think it's actually quite cool as well that the Association of Real Estate License Law Officials, ARELO, that's sort of our national organization that all of the state agencies, all of the real estate commissions belong to, are all actually starting to kind of look at this as well. Like, hey, what's Oklahoma doing? We want to look at that. So we're actually kind of leading the charge for once, which is really big for me, because I really feel that one of the things that the government needs to do a better job of in Oklahoma is getting in front of the trend, in front of the curve a little bit, rather than always trailing behind. So, when you talk about a new licensing system, it may not sound that fun, but it's actually, I kind of liken it to being the engine in the car that makes it go, and that's where all your data is. That dictates how fast we can go. Everything. So
we're really excited about this. I mean, this has been big news, a long time coming. You guys have gone through a lot of time trying to figure this out and find the system, and now you're finally at that place where you've settled on somebody, and we're hearing good reviews from people, speeding up the process, less phone calls, easier to renew, all those kinds of things.
Big time,
so
100%.
We're excited to hear about some of the features and everything that are built in.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as features go, I think the big thing off the bat for me is license renewals are now automatic and instant, which is a big win, because previous to implementing this system, when you wanted to renew a license, in fact, most of the people who needed to do that actually had to call the commission and get help getting logged in to get their password. That's no longer something you have to call us for. And it
that's
took.
still going to happen.
Absolutely, we know 100%.
There's still somebody standing by, just in case.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we still welcome people to come in, and we'll help you do that manually if you're having trouble with that. But so that's a big win for us. Also, having the ability to accept applications online has massively sped up the process. So I talked to somebody a week ago who had actually submitted their application on a Friday and could actually go schedule their exam Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really big win for me. We talked about trying to make that process easier and quicker to get into a brokerage. So I think that's a big win. Our public registry, this is a really big win for me as well. We completely redid our registry. We completely cleaned up all of our data. So right now, if you actually go onto the commission's website and you click our search a licensee button, you can search businesses, you can search individuals, and what's new about it, in addition to the fact that it works much better, which is always a nice win, is that you can actually now search by trade names, you can search team names, you can search license numbers. So and this actually is a really good example of the power of public feedback. We heard from a lot of people, hey, someone's advertising under this name, but when I go look for it, I can't find them. Well, now that we have the ability to tie the team names and the trade names to a brokerage, if you search for that, it's going to show up right away. And in addition to that, we also have rosters for every business on there, so you can see who's in a brokerage. You can see their license expiration date, and you can see their license status. And that's just a big win for, hey, if you're working on the opposite side of a transaction as someone, you can see what their license status is. If you're a broker specifically, rather than logging into a system, you can, in under 30 seconds, even it's mobile friendly, you can just take a look at your brokerage and see, hey, is anybody coming up for renewal? Is anybody have a license status issue? And so, we talk about regulating in a way where you're meeting people halfway, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to give you the tools so that, we're no longer just saying, hey, here's a big book, follow everything in there, and if you don't, you're in trouble. We're kind of finding ways to bridge those gaps for places that people have kind of identified. A few other things I'll just mention as far as features of our system. Now you can upload your own CE certificates. We'll talk in a minute, I think, about maybe some changes coming down the pipeline to that. We also have automatic notifications, which is huge for me because before, if the commission wanted to notify you that, hey, your license is going to expire or we need to talk to you about something, we had to send that in the mail. And while that doesn't sound expensive, it actually was costing the commission over $100,000 a year. So we've been able to update that and make that much quicker. And now brokers, agents, you're getting automatic email notifications. And I looked at the system yesterday, and we've actually sent about 40,000 automatic notifications since January alone.
That's impressive. I mean, emails are cheaper than mail, right?
Absolutely.
And everybody uses email in this industry, right? So that's going to be an accessible way to get them. And if they see that real estate commission's emailing me, there's a lot of emails that I don't open and I delete.
Right.
But if I get one from the real estate commission, that's one I'm going to open. Like, I think you can feel confident. Hopefully, people will take a look, read the emails from the real estate commission.
Hopefully.
We're doing our best too. Usually the subject line can kind of tell you what you need to know. But for brokers too, I want to highlight this. Brokers get extra notifications, and this is something, again, the power of public feedback. We heard from brokers, I want to know when my agents have a license that's not being renewed or something like that. So brokers are now getting notifications. Usually we wait until a few days beforehand. So right now, 48 hours before someone in your organization has a license lapse, you're getting a notice. If a license does lapse, you're getting a notice about that as well. And additionally, our system basically allows you to do everything that you used to have to do on paper digitally with like 1 or 2 clicks of the mouse. Hey, I want to release an associate. You can log in and do that in 10 seconds. I want to transfer brokerages. Again, you can do that. You can pick the brokerage you want to go to, and it shoots automatic notifications out to both brokers, the one that's going to release you and the one that's going to take you in. So it kind of avoids the need to run around town and get 5 different signatures on a form and then battle with the commission about did it get received. So it's sped up the processing time significantly. I actually was looking at it the other day, and basically if you give us something and you've got all the signatures and approvals you need, it's getting approved the same day it comes in. So
this doesn't sound like government at all.
Well, it's back to that mindset, right, about trying to run government more like a business. So, when we're in the infancy, that's what I keep trying to stress to people, is that where we are right now is a starting point. It's the start of a new future. So I think, you can expect to see these waiting times continue to decrease. I think you can continue to get new functions and new abilities, new notices, things of that nature that are helpful to you. And we want people's feedback big time. A big part of what I'm doing now is communicating with associations and brokerages across the state to try to find out what else can we do to make your life easier. So if you have things that we can do, definitely shoot them into us, because I'm listening and I want your opinions.
I love that. Love that you're willing to take on that feedback.
Yeah, and it gets implemented. So.
Yeah, and then last thing I think I'll mention about system changes. Some people who call us might notice now that you go to an automated voice messaging system, which I know some people are kind of split on that. Some people, hey, I want to get someone on the phone right away. The advantage of doing this for us is actually that now every call, every email that comes into the commission goes to one central database. So myself, our deputy director, everyone there, we get to see everything that comes in and exactly when it comes in and then who it goes to in our organization. So there's a new level of accountability. There's faster turnaround times. We're able to make sure that you're getting a phone call back or an email back the same day that it comes in, if it comes in before about 3:30 p.m. Nothing should be taking longer than 24 hours to get back to you now. So I think there's just that new level of transparency and accountability, and just allows us to be more organized. And one of the things that's really underrated about doing business this way as well is that it allows us to track, metrics and data analytics. So a great example would be, hey, we're getting 20 phone calls a day about this topic specifically. What can we do differently to avoid that question having to even come in? And so that happened recently. We were looking and realized we're getting a lot of questions about, I passed my exam, now what do I do? So we recently actually gave our exam vendor form instructions with pictures on them about, hey, you passed your exam, great, follow these instructions, it's one page, and that's actually helping people figure out how to get their license issued. So I think you can continue to expect us to kind of make these types of changes moving forward.
Love it.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like a fantastic system to implement. You mentioned, obviously this is not the end of the system integration or features. Do you have some features that you'd like to tell us about that might be coming down in the future?
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things I mentioned again is, our vendor that we're working with, we can actually change this system as we go. We can customize it, we can upgrade it as technology advances. There's a lot of cool things that we can do. So a couple cool changes that I think everybody can expect. By the end of April, we're actually going to roll out a brand new continuing education portal. And what this continuing education portal is going to do is going to allow schools to go ahead and instantly upload all of the hours that anyone's completed any given day. And I know the commission had a version of this in the past, but the version we're rolling out is far better. It's going to populate into your individual license profile almost immediately, cutting down the time. So if you're in the last week of a license renewal period, you can kind of rest a little easier knowing that that's going to be uploaded super, super fast for you. When you log into that portal, you can actually see this is how many hours I've completed, how many do I need to complete, and in which subject. So that CE portal is going to be a big win for educators. I don't think a lot of people know that since December, our staff has actually been manually inputting every CE hour that's been performed. And I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but it's tens of thousands of hours for individuals that have been uploaded. So saving that staff time and redirecting it to more customer service, more calls back, things like that, I think that's also going to kind of make a big difference. Another thing that we are going to be rolling out soon as that's done, we're going to be bringing an educator portal out, which is the first time the commission's ever done that. So educators, if you need to get an instructor application in or a renewal, that could be done online, again, instantly. If you want to submit a course that you want to get approved for CE credit, that can be done online instantly as well. And then the cool part is that course will actually go straight into our website database. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but you go to our website right now and you click it's orec.ok.gov, you click the education tab, you can view a list of approved CE courses and you can actually search it by topic, name, keyword identifiers. So if you get something approved through that education portal, it'll auto-populate into that right away. So that should be a cool way to get that information out. And then the last two things, we're actually working on SMS text notifications. So I've heard from some people that, hey, some of these auto notifications you're giving are maybe going to my spam mail or something like that, or some people just don't check their email as much as they do their phone. So we're going to have some SMS text options. And I want people to rest assured, though, that we will give you the ability to customize what you're receiving on those notifications, so you won't be getting a million texts a day from me, I promise.
You won't get the recipe of the week from the...
Exactly.
That's
and
what
then
I signed up for.
we'll work on that. The last item is that we have a brand new license history, too. So as we watch, kind of the nationalization of real estate, we want to support our real estate licensees. If you're trying to get licensed in another jurisdiction, I took a look at that and it looked like it was just kind of a painful process, to be honest. So we now have a form digital license history that is being rolled out, and I think that's something that people can expect to see soon. Why does that matter? It's going to make it much, much faster for us to send that to another state for you or to give to you directly to apply at another state. So again, a lot of these changes, guys, come from you. So a round of applause to you all for really, really good feedback. I love how vocal our real estate licensees are, and we just want to do a good job for you. So keep giving us that feedback, and we'll keep trying to get better.
Our vocal licensees. We love them. We love them. Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, nice. You mentioned entering all those CE hours by hand. I mean, I know at OAR by itself, we had almost 15,000 hours. So
Yes.
that's a lot of hours to enter.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the 3 staff members that we've had doing that have been champs about it, but it will be much faster. And, we actually recently brought in 3 new employees as well, and they're doing an awesome job. So I think the customer service, everything with the commission should get much faster, should continue to improve. And again, we want that feedback from you all.
Well,
Nice.
we appreciate that. And as I understand it too, if people need some help, you guys are even helping to train people on that. So, if you guys are in that situation, you're getting in the system, have some questions, reach out to them. They'll help you. They'll get you trained up. Don't be scared of the real estate commission. They're there to help as well as enforce when needed. But
Absolutely.
appreciate that mindset you guys have.
I feel like we say don't be scared of the real estate commission whenever we talk about it.
I know, right? Well, I get it. I get it.
And I don't know if you mentioned this at the start. If you have any questions that you want us to ask right now, go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll try to get to them.
Yeah, we've only got so much time, but we're going to try to get to everything we can. This may be an opportunity to have Grant on again in the future
Right.
to try to answer some of those questions if we can't get through everything today.
So just pour in those questions.
Absolutely, bring them in. Let's put Grant on the spot. Do want to switch gears a little bit. You got some administrative rule changes that have been going through the process that has to go through legislative approval, all that. But are there any highlights from administrative rules that you think people should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So this round of administrative rules doesn't have anything earth-shattering in there. I think most of the changes are really, really positive. I could talk about that for a while, but I think if I were to give you kind of what are Grant's top 10 rule changes, the first, which should be a popular one, is that we have removed all late fees. So the commission, for those who don't know this, the commission had a rule for a very, very long time that said, hey, if you don't renew your license by the 10th day of the month it expires in, then you have to pay an extra $10 as a late penalty fee. And that never really made sense to me, because if my license says it's good until the end of December, but I am submitting it to you on December 10th or 11th, and I'm fine for that, it never made sense for me, to me. So we're removing that immediately. And in fact, I want everyone to know that if you're doing your license renewal online with us right now, we're not charging that fee now. So we've kind of suspended that, but that's going away permanently. The second, which is a big change, is that provisional sales associates who traditionally had to wait a full year to move to sales associate are now eligible to move to sales associate upon completion of their 45-hour post-course. So we no longer have this arbitrary 1-year waiting period. And the idea behind this is that we want to incentivize new provisional sales associates to get more education faster. And the thought process is that this will help brokers just have an extra degree of confidence in new licensees, as well as kind of providing some additional protection for the public, right? Having more education is never a bad thing. So incentivizing that to go a little bit quicker, we're hoping that makes a positive difference. We've also decided to drop the passing score for continuing education, post-license and pre-license exams in class only, from 80 to 75, which mirrors our state exam cut score of 75. We have no more background checks for licenses that lapse for under a year. So I know that's again, power of public feedback. We heard from people, and I know how unreasonable it was, right? Hey, my license lapsed 2 days ago because I was sick or I made a mistake. What do you mean I have to go get a background check and pay $60 for that? That's no longer going to happen. I don't know if everyone knows this, but when you get a background check with the commission, your information's on file. So if you're arrested or if something happens, we actually get notification of that. So that didn't need to continue.
Don't lie on your application because they will find out. Just
Eventually, yes. Additionally, this is a cool one for brokers. You no longer have to hold licenses on site in your whatever office that you're in. So branch brokers, managing brokers, you don't have to get physical licenses. You don't have to keep them on staff now that we have digital licenses. We can see who's in a brokerage. Anybody can, actually, for that matter. So there's much more transparency. So you don't have to worry about collecting those. You actually don't have to worry about sending them back or putting them through the shredder. So hopefully that makes life a lot easier. And then last couple things, we made a code change to a rule that's cited a lot of the times for escalation clauses, and that's Administrative Code 605 1017.4 subsection 4. And essentially what that rule said was it was a violation to get a signature on a lease, a contract, or a purchase offer without having a definite purchase price in there. And Jeff, I know we have talked about this before. So we actually just tweaked that language a little bit to say a maximum purchase price. So moving forward, if you're going to have a lease, a purchase offer, maybe you're doing an escalation clause addendum, just make sure that there is some sort of maximum purchase price included on the actual agreement rather than a definite purchase price. We just want to make sure there's some sort of cap that people can expect to hit, again, to protect the public and just have some more transparency. And then the very last thing is we've made some changes to our disciplinary procedures to speed up the process, to provide more transparency, and to make it easier for the commission to take you from complaint to complaint resolution with just more transparency and much, much faster. You know, a big part of the cleanup at the commission this past year was there were a backlog of disciplinary cases that went back years. And so the idea moving forward is let's get everything that comes in that year done in the same year it comes in. In fact, to be honest with you, these days we're trying to get somebody resolved in under 4 or 5 months. So, and I think again that number will continue to come down. So hopefully, you know, if you do have a complaint against you, that can be resolved much faster than it was in the past.
That's outstanding.
Yep.
A couple of things, just that speeding up the process is great. I know that that's been an issue in the past, and so people are going to be really glad to hear that. Just all this, if you've had a negative thought about the Real Estate Commission in the past, there's a pretty good chance that they're doing something to fix it or it's already fixed. You know, this is what we're seeing right now. And just really appreciate that mindset. I'm also so glad you brought up escalation clauses. This has been a thing.
Here we go.
This is a thing.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if you're aware, people, but escalation clauses are a thing. We've actually done a couple of podcast episodes on it in the past. Things have changed from there. So I would love to address that now because this is a question that comes up repeatedly. Originally, we started out and the question was, are escalation clauses even legal? Can you do them? And you and I talked about it. This has been an ongoing deal, but we've now arrived at a point where everybody is in agreement. I say everybody. You may not be as a listener, but listen, we are in agreement, at least Grant and I and many others, that they are legal to use. And
Correct.
We've gone so far, though, as to, like I said, you're modifying the rule to make sure that's cleaned up. But the Real Estate Commission even released a form for escalation clauses because even though, like I've been saying, I think it's legal, I've always sort of caveat, as long as you do it right. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And to help facilitate that, because as we know, properties are just going, it's crazy right now, of course. So just give us a little bit of kind of your perspective on the escalation clause form that's been released and kind of where we are now, because I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and understanding kind of where we are status-wise as far as escalation.
Yeah,
clauses.
absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is that the commission, we don't encourage the use of an escalation clause, right? Sure. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that, not only for your own liability as far as are you violating a commission rule, but also, you know, you run into issues with appraisal. You know, I think when it comes to escalation clauses, the problem with them is usually in the execution, not in the intent. So we don't encourage it for that reason. Also, you know, there are some confidentiality restrictions under Title IX, Section 858-853, I believe. So there's some confidentiality issues with, you know, verifying competing offers that could be used to escalate a purchase price. So if you kind of identify those risks ahead of time, that's why we don't particularly, you know, get on top of the table and shout, hey, go do these. You know, I'm a proponent of taking more of a highest and best approach when you're, you know, kind of working with a client on making a purchase offer, or if you're a listing agent and, you know, soliciting kind of your highest and best. But that being said, no, they're not illegal to do. And, you know, part of why we want to work with licensees to find an approach that works is because we want our licensees to have that competitive advantage or to have a level playing field, right? Jeff and I, we talked before this kind of all came to fruition that, you know, it's a legal mechanism to use. And if a licensee is not going to use one, well, somebody else can. And so as we're seeing this nationalization of real estate where you don't have to necessarily have boots on the ground in Oklahoma, we want to make sure that the people who do have boots on the ground in Oklahoma have a level playing field or really a competitive advantage in some ways. So as far as what do I tell people about escalation clauses and our escalation addendum, which you can find on our website if you click Contract and Forms button, and then it's right under residential property. The first thing is that you have to have a maximum cap in there, which I know you've talked about before. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit. You know, you should escalate up to a certain number. You never want to say, hey, I'll pay $1,000 over the next highest, because you have no idea how high that can go. So make sure you have a cap in there. The second piece of advice that I give people is communicate. Communicate with your buyer, communicate with the other parties. That's part of why the public comes to a real estate licensee, right? Is so that you can have those conversations, and sometimes those are difficult conversations to have. But communicating with financing, with appraisal, most of the time you're using an escalation clause, you're gonna escalate that price up to, probably run into some issues with either the financing that you've come up with or the appraisal that you can expect to have. So it's good to communicate and have something in place for how are we gonna handle that. And that's what our escalation addendum is kind of aimed at, helping you get off to a smooth start if you're gonna do that, right? We kind of identify, here are some of the risks associated with this, so you're making an informed choice and your buyer is making an informed choice. And then the next thing I tell people is take a really, really close look at the second paragraph in the escalation addendum form. Okay, that's a financing procedure provision which kind of talks about, once we escalate this price, how is that going to affect the financing? Are we going to have to pay more out of pocket? Are we going to have to go back and maybe tweak the loan amount? So those are kind of the devils in the details with those types of things. So my biggest advice to people is work off of the escalation addendum form, and then work with your broker, call the commission, work with somebody to help make sure that you're doing it properly the first few times that you do it, so that you avoid any of those fun issues that people often run into.
Perfect. And I just want to say I agree with you, everything you said, 100%. I don't favor them either. I don't like them necessarily. I do think there's a lot of risk and confusion, and it gets complicated, and so I don't love it, but it's a thing. And so I appreciate that stance and everything you said. I just really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And another thing too is that regulation, it should mirror the practice that's going on out there. And so when we're in a situation right now where we have low inventory, we have multiple offer situations, people are going to do this, and they've been doing this for some time. So eventually it's kind of one of those things, does it make more sense to prosecute 500 people a year and fine them for doing something, or does it make more sense to make sure they're doing it correctly and kind of clean up that practice? So I think, as we move forward, you can expect regulation to always favor public protection and always have transparency, but also we want to work with licensees to meet you halfway to make sure that you have the tools you need to succeed in the environment, and kind of how that is dictated by the market. So, I hopefully we can get this cleaned up and get everybody on the same page.
Perfect. Yeah. I think we got time for a couple of questions. Bill, I think you had a question come in, didn't you?
Yeah. And one thing before we get to this question, very impressive that you quote titles and sections by memory.
I'm trying. It's been a year. We're getting ready to do a larger code and rule overhaul coming into late summer, early fall. So a lot of these citations will probably be subject to change, because we want to make our code and rules easier to navigate. We want to make it shorter. If I could chop off about 25% of it in order to kind of condense it down and make it more digestible, that's definitely something we want to do.
Perfect. Nice. All right, so a question from Claudette. We see a lot of escalation clauses that are also contingent upon appraisal. Is that a true escalation clause?
That's a great question. Contingent on appraisal, I think that gets very, very fact specific. So we can probably go into that quite a bit. Is it a true escalation clause? I would say yes, from the standpoint that you have a provision in there that is, being used to raise the purchase price using competing offers. The contingency on appraisal, I think that comes down to the contract language that you're using. And again, I really strongly recommend that you use our form, because it's set up in a way to kind of guide you through the process, so that you kind of have identified up front, how are we going to handle the appraisal? Obviously, the appraisal is going to come in, and I'd say the most common situation that we're worried about is that you escalate the price up, and then the appraisal is still down here. So now all of a sudden you're paying above that appraisal price. What do? Well, our financing procedure in the second paragraph of the form, it actually addresses that up front. And so again, as a licensee, this is the big communication piece. You have to be able to communicate with your buyer about, hey, you need to talk to whatever group you're using for a loan, to make sure that you have parameters in place to make sure they understand that this might be subject to change, or that you might need to come back to the table. The other thing is to have a really honest conversation with your with your buyer about what they might be able to pay out of pocket. So I think part of what, when we talk about appraisal contingencies, is just being really, really intelligent about the factors that you identify and the way that you discuss those with your buyer, making sure that, hey, if we're going to escalate up to this price and have a maximum price that you can pay, my advice to you would be to work off of that maximum number. Assume that the escalation clause is going to escalate to the maximum highest and best that you've identified, and then solve that problem before you kind of move forward. All right, if we're going to pay $20,000, above what we started at, how are we going to finance that? So it is a true escalation clause, but again, the devil's in the details, and we're happy to answer questions at the commission if we can for anything like that.
Perfect.
Nice.
I think we had a question about the wholesaling bill that's moving through the legislature right now as well. What came in on that, Nabil?
Is there a plan within the commission in regards to the new bill that is coming through? It hasn't passed yet, but as soon as it does, we'll be sure to get you more information on that. Is there a plan? What are your thoughts on that bill?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we looked at, when we were doing this bill in conjunction with OAR, we kind of talked about what are other states doing, and then we identified a lot of the growing pains that they had with the legislation they passed. So this legislation, for anyone who doesn't know, it basically just says that wholesaling is a licensable activity. It closes that loophole. So if you want to wholesale in Oklahoma moving forward, you have to get a license, you have to be beholden to the same rules and requirements as everybody else. I think a few things that just make common sense, which is why it's been moving so forward with such support. Things like making sure there's a background check for the individuals that are wholesaling, right? I mean, there's definitely some concerns there, kind of curtailing the predatory practices. But the whole intent of why we made this a licensable activity is so that the commission could then have more authority to regulate this, number one. And then number two, as far as an internal plan, absolutely. We're going to look at some administrative rules that we can promulgate that are specific to wholesaling that help curtail some of the predatory practices. And again, this is where we rely on feedback from you in the industry. If you're working across from somebody that's wholesaling a property, or if you're running into problems with that, we want you to tell us, hey, these are the things I'm seeing and these are the things I have a problem with, so that we can identify those, discuss them, and then promulgate some admin rules to further kind of address the wholesaling issue. And the last thing I'll say about that as well is that by having the ability to promulgate rules, we can do that emergency basis or permanent basis. So what that means basically, for anyone who's not familiar with rulemaking, is we could do that pretty much lickety-split on the spot if we need to come up with a rule on the spot to get in front of a new trend that's happening with wholesaling. These things are always evolving, so we want to be able to react quickly to make sure that we have reasonable regulations in place to protect the public and also to make life as a licensee a little more tolerable. So absolutely.
Perfect.
Nice.
Another question real quick is sort of like, what's the financial status of the Real Estate Commission? We know that there's been in the past some concern about enough revenue coming in, those kinds of things. Are you anticipating any kind of increase in licensing fees, or a quicker license rather than 3-year or 2-year cycle to help raise revenue, or how are things there financially?
Yeah, I'm really happy you asked this question. So one of the biggest areas for me as a business owner, when I came into the commission, we had last March, right around the time when I was asked to step in as executive director, the commission had $317,000 in cash reserves, which is the lowest amount that it had been at in like a decade. And just to give people an idea of how low that number was, that's like 2.5 months of payroll. So it was definitely, okay, we've got to make some wholesale changes to the way that we're operating. So I'm really, really pleased to announce that here we are 12 months later. We've made, we cut expenses, we kind of completely redid the way that we do business. And here we are 12 months later, our cash reserves are up to $1.2 million. So almost a $900,000 increase in the money that we have in cash reserves, which people should care about because that's your money, number one, and number two, that's directly tied to kind of the pricing that we use. So because we're so financially healthy right now, that's why we're able to get rid of things like the late fee. It's also, a really good indication that moving forward, we shouldn't have to raise prices any further. I don't expect license fees to go up. In fact, it's my goal to set up the commission right now so that license fees are not raised for about another 20 years. So hopefully we can keep Oklahoma competitive. Right now, we always are very mindful of where we fall on the spectrum. Right now, we're about in the middle of the pack as far as how expensive we are. But as we move forward these next 5-10 years, I expect us to actually fall down that list quite a bit so that we're one of the least expensive states out there. So we're doing a good job with your money, and we're very mindful of that, and I'm just happy that we're trending in such a positive direction. The last time the commission had this much money was 2013, I believe. So we've had a tremendous year, and the first 3 months of 2021 have been outstanding. I would say that we're doing about $80,000 to $100,000 more in revenue that we're actually able to put into our cash reserves than we were before. So we're in a very, very good place.
That's incredible.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And this last one should be an easy one for you. Paula asks, what is the title number to refer to regarding escalation?
Yeah, that's title 605, 10, 17, 74, subsection 4.
That's impressive.
And I'll just say this too, if you ever want help locating a code number, or you have something like this that you want to talk about, just shoot our help desk an email, help@orec.ok.gov. That's going to go into that central database I talked about, and it's going to come right to me, so we'll make sure that you get an answer and get help immediately.
That's
Excellent.
awesome. Grant, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. This has been very informative. I hope everyone else is excited to hear what's coming out of the Real Estate Commission. I know I am. We've got a great group of people over there. Great leadership there. You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much,
and
guys.
So we really appreciate that. We definitely want to have you back on the podcast again.
I'd love to come back. This was a lot of fun.
Get
Thank
into the
you.
weeds on some
I don't
stuff.
think we scared him off yet.
No, not at all. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, or in this case, watching the podcast, please make sure you subscribe to us. You can find us on any platform where you get podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you go, you can get
Google
our
Play,
podcast.
Stitcher, you name it.
We're everywhere. So subscribe to us so you can get this every single week. Leave us a review and send us your feedback. If you've got questions for us or maybe a future episode when we have Grant back, send us an email, which you can do at podcast@OKRealtors.com. You can also go online and check us out, OKRealtors.com/talking real. And until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.